good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Woo, good, good, good. Happy to see all of you here. And we've been having some really nice weather in London, as you know. We've been all enjoying it, sunny weather. And that also, reflects on some of the really cool stuff that we've been making progress on in OpenTelemetry. And I'd really like to thank you all for joining in today, as well as for your support for the project and for your contributions. For those of you who are contributing to OTel, could I see a show of hands? All right, so we have a few of you, and I hope that more of you will be joining in to contribute to the project. So with that said, we're going to be covering, and our esteemed GC members, my fellow GC members, will be talking about some of the project updates on the features that we have been building out on the project, as well as our community, and also the roadmap to graduation. So with that said, I'd like to do a very quick introduction. I'm Alolita Sharma. I lead observability at Apple, and I also have been a long-term OpenTelemetry contributor and a maintainer. And I'd like to introduce Daniel Gomez-Blanco from New Relic, Austin Parker, who is the lookalike for Severin Neumann, who couldn't join us today, and from Honeycomb, Trask, Stalnaker, also on the GC from Microsoft, as well as Pablo Baeyens from Datadog, who is one of our core collector contributors. So with that said, I'll turn it over, just run through a very quick community update, and then we can dive into the features and other roadmap updates. But please hold your questions for the end, because again, it's just, we'll do a quick run through so that we can actually allow a lot more Q&A time. So, please, it'll give you some time to get prepared with your questions. All right, so as you can see, and I hope you can all see the slide, this is kind of the trajectory of OpenTelemetry's contributions over the last 5 years. You can see over 5 years ago, we were about less shy of 1,000 contributions, and also, folks were starting to contribute very actively. But today, you can see, our average has kind of shot up to 7,000 contributions a week, and more than 500 active contributors working on the project at any given point in time. That's pretty phenomenal, and as many of you know, we are the second largest project now after Kubernetes in the CNCF. And also, of course, as any ecosystem develops, the observability ecosystem, which we'll be talking about later, will kind of highlight some of these areas. Also, another few metrics, that you would be interested from a community standpoint. Again, we have a very, very nice, welcoming, and a healthy community, and very proud of it. We have over 1,000+ organizations who have contributed to OpenTelemetry over time. That's pretty phenomenal. We have 255+ organizations at any given point in the week contributing actively, which is very cool because 25% of the long-term organizations actually continue to contribute and work together as maintainers as well as contributors on the project. I've listed out some of the top contributors, if you will, in terms of organizations in that colorful band of folks. And as I said, 550+ developers at this snapshot in time are very active contributors, making contributions as PRs or issues or triaging, many different ways they're involved in the project week over week. We are a very large project, so if you've seen our repos on GitHub, we have about 80+ repos, which means that we have a lot of work going on the project, and it's really exciting to see a lot of the work that integrates not only and makes our collector better, which is the core heart of the OpenTelemetry project, but also our SDKs and libraries, and other integrations. We have both a very healthy mix of vendors and end user organizations working together on the project, which has been just amazing. And globally, pretty amazing, 105 countries at count right at this point in time, but 100 plus countries that have contributors coming in and contributing to the project. So with that said, I will turn it over to Daniel, who is going to dive into end user adoption and some other cool things.
There's some seats up here, by the way, if people want to sit.
Yeah, there are some seats at the front if you want to, if you're looking for a seat. So on the end user front, we continue to see OpenTelemetry everywhere. OpenTelemetry is a key part of any observability strategy. Now, the important thing that we've seen, the change that we've seen, is that maybe a year or two ago, some of the talks that we were seeing were about organizations that were starting to use OpenTelemetry, or that were thinking about using OpenTelemetry. And now we're seeing case studies and talks here at KubeCon that are from large-scale adoption of OpenTelemetry successfully, and end users talking to us about the value that they're getting from OpenTelemetry from the point of view of tooling consolidation, from the point of view of effective observability, and the changes that they're seeing within their organizations from adopting OpenTelemetry. So some of the, as well, some of the case studies in CNCF, some of independent blog posts and podcasts of organizations that have adopted OpenTelemetry at scale already. So that is really great to see. And if you're an end user, tell us your story. I think it's always really good to see that type of, how are people doing OpenTelemetry at scale. Closer to home, we have also seen OpenTelemetry being consolidated as the standard to instrument cloud-native tooling. The CNCF projects that you see listed here are using OpenTelemetry tooling, are using OpenTelemetry APIs natively, and providing their users with a way to export and to process that telemetry in a back-end neutral way. So this is, I'm not sure this is a comprehensive list. There may be other projects out there, or the CNCF projects that are using OpenTelemetry. So if you're one of them and you want to be listed in our list of ecosystem integrations, come talk to us or raise an issue in the website repo, and then we can get your project listed as well and tell users how they can come and use OpenTelemetry with your CNCF project. Another trend that we have seen emerging as well, and that very much aligns with OpenTelemetry's vision, is how we're changing how we're instrumenting our open source libraries. Traditionally, the way that instrumentation tends to work is we're using instrumentation libraries that are maintained by OpenTelemetry contributors, and they use techniques like monkey patching or bytecode injection to then instrument open source libraries, add that instrumentation, that telemetry. And those use the same cross-cutting APIs, now that are stable for metrics, traces, and logs, and use the semantic conventions to have that unified view, that single stream of correlated data, along with your application code. And then so like that being abstracted from the SDK implementation, then allows the end user, to initialize the SDK with their own config, and then process, aggregate, and export that telemetry wherever they want to export it. But we believe that telemetry should be baked in, and baked into open source libraries. So we are seeing more of open source libraries out there that are using OpenTelemetry natively. So when we talk about OTel native instrumentation, is instrumentation that is added to open source libraries, using the same, taking direct dependencies on the same API and semantic conventions, and then working together with application code with your custom instrumentation to provide, again, that same context, that same correlation context to give you effective observability. Now, if you're an owner of a library and then you want to provide users with a vendor neutral way of approaching telemetry instrumentation, then you can do, you can just instrument your library with the OpenTel API, and then allow your end users to then do whatever they want with that telemetry at the end of the day, just aggregate it, export it everywhere. And then from the point of view of most importantly, I think is from the maintainer of an open source library, from that perspective, is having the ownership of that telemetry. It is your library. You can tell your users how they observe your library, how they observe your application, right? So it's not up to an external maintainer to come and instrument it. You can take ownership, you can make your users observe your code as you want them to observe it. And then we're seeing that happening already. in the open source ecosystems, we're seeing Deno, for example, now as a runtime, as a JavaScript runtime, provide an OpenTelemetry out of the box. We're seeing Quarkus as a Java framework. That, again, provides OpenTelemetry integration. And all their open source libraries, like the Azure SDK, the client, the Elasticsearch client, Mass Transit, in-service bus, or Throttle, Mass Throttle. But so moving forward to the project, more like what we're doing inside the project, I hand over to Austin to talk about some very exciting updates.
Thank you. Wait, I get applause? Cool. We have some more seats over here, too, if people standing want to come sit down. No? All right. Thought I'd offer.
Yeah, there's
So let's talk about what's going on in the big old world of OTel today. You've probably gotten sick of hearing this by now, but hey, graduation's still in progress. We have fulfilled all of our prerequisites for it. There's a lot of paperwork. I've been told that it should be happening pretty soon once someone from the TOC picks it up, but we have quite a few people, set up as adopter interviews. We've done security audits. We've done third-party security audits. Graduation is an important signal to people outside of this room, to the greater cloud native community, and especially to a lot of enterprises that align their internal adoption of open source with the cloud native maturity roadmap. Graduation is kind of us saying like, hey, yeah, this is something you can rely on to be here for a while. As part of that, we've also been working with Linux Foundation Education to do more training and certification around OTel. So there is an OpenTelemetry Certified Associate program, which is an exam. It's in beta still, I think, and we'll be coming out of that pretty soon. They're doing some final alignment of stuff there, but you'll be able to say, hey, yeah, I'm certified at OpenTelemetry in a positive way. We also have a free Getting Started with OpenTelemetry course that you can take through Linux Foundation Education, which is nice. Beyond that, we have just a lot going on. As one of the good things about having so many contributors and having so many people in the community is that we're able to really, work on a lot of things at once. This is a sample of some of our blogs since the beginning of the year, right, where we're big shout out to our JavaScript contributors, maintainers that are in the room for SDK 2.0, which solves a lot of challenges that JavaScript users reported to us over the years. We're doing a lot of work with Go compile time and runtime instrumentation and telemetry via eBPF. We've been working to improve the Lambda experience for using OpenTelemetry. A lot of that's driven by a couple of contributors that are just very passionate about it. So thank you if you're here. Thank you for all your work. Beyond that, we have a few bigger things we're taking swings at this year. You've probably heard us talk about profiling. We announced this a couple years ago at KubeCon that we were going to adopt it as a fourth major signal. And they've been in OTLP since 1.3. We've been working with the people at Elastic donated a system-wide profiler to the project. We accepted that, and it is now sort of the core of this eBPF profiler initiative. That is in progress. That's being actively developed. I believe there's quite a few people that are working on that here at KubeCon, so come find them at the observatory if you want to talk to them. The collector has a new profile support that you can enable via FeatureGate, and we're continuing to work on semantic conventions and specification around it and hope to have, basically right now it's in alpha, but hopefully we'll be moving into beta this year-ish. Now for a real fun one. Everyone's favorite topic, logs. So, as some people might be aware, originally our plan at OpenTelemetry was not to provide a user-facing logging API. We wanted to, every language has, let me step back a second. Every single person on the planet has very strong opinions about how logs should be done, right? And we didn't really want to kind of step in that and come in and say, oh, here's the new, better way, right? So our original plan was to offer just a bridge API between existing logging facades and the OpenTelemetry SDK so that you could just take your existing logging API, point it into the SDK, and get trace or OTel context to log correlation. However, as we've But continue to work on things such as semantic conventions, especially around Gen AI, and also just general community feedback. We maybe did not hit the mark with that original decision about what the logging facade should be in OTel. And so we are currently in the process of defining a user-facing structured logging API. You might also hear this referred to as events. What this will do, it's currently in alpha. We're not getting rid of the logging bridge. You'll still be able to connect existing log APIs into the SDK, just like you can today in all languages, but there will be a new user-facing logging API, which does mean that you'll be able to actually have logs, traces, metrics, profiles, everything done through a first-party OTel API. And when this work is completed, it unlocks a lot of new things. This kind of finally unblocks us around client-side and RUM telemetry, browser performance telemetry, instantaneous events, structured events for Gen AI, a lot of applications in the CI/CD world. So if you'd like to talk to more people about that this week, this would be a great time to get feedback on it, and all this work is being done in the specification. So with that, I want to bring up Trask to talk a little bit more about semantic conventions and other fun things that are happening.
Thanks, Austin. So semantic conventions defines the shape of your telemetry. For example, standardizing metric names and dimensions for your HTTP metrics. These are a critical part of the OpenTelemetry ecosystem since they define the consistency and usefulness of your telemetry. Semantic conventions in OpenTelemetry is a very broad effort across, we've got 9 SIGs dedicated to different types of semantic conventions, covering 74 domains and almost 1,000 semantic convention attributes at this point. Declaring specific semantic conventions as stable is one of our top priorities right now, since it will allow the whole ecosystem to depend on these semantic conventions, from libraries implementing native instrumentation to the dashboards and alerts that you use. Closing in on stabilization, we have database client semantic conventions, and the code annotation attributes are both in release candidate and planning to go stable by the end of April. And shortly behind that is the system metrics group, which is working towards quickly towards stability as well. Upcoming stabilization efforts beyond that include feature flags, Kubernetes metrics, messaging, and RPC. And I did want to call out a couple of other highlights, the CI/CD semantic conventions. If you're at all interested in this, there's a talk right after this, right across the hall. Check that out. The semantic conventions for generative AI and the associated instrumentations is a very active space, a lot of folks interested in that, and a lot of work to do if you are interested in contributing in that area. And we are redoubling our efforts around browser and mobile semantic conventions. Now, as Austin mentioned, we've unblocked some of the long-standing blockers of that work. I also wanted to take a minute to share some ongoing work in the semantic conventions to integrate semantic conventions into your development process. Since not all of your telemetry is going to fit the existing semantic conventions, you're going to have your own custom telemetry, your own and this will allow you to have your own, define your own custom semantic conventions. You'll be able to define your own telemetry schema, generate type-safe SDK to emit that telemetry, automatically validate that telemetry from your tests, automatically handle schema changes as you make changes to your telemetry, And ultimately, this integrating this into your development process and using the associated tooling that we've been working on will protect you against breaking dashboards and alerts, which is something that everybody hopefully can appreciate. If you are interested in this, this is work in progress at varying degrees of maturity. There was a great talk yesterday. If you missed it, check out the recording once it's posted online. And with that, I will turn it over to Pablo.
Thank you, Trask. So on the collector, as you know, you can create and publish your own components that work with the collector framework. But we offer a curated selection of those under the OpenTelemetry project umbrella. Since last year in Paris, we published 43 new components. It's impossible to talk about all of them, but some highlights are you can now use with the builder config providers to, for example, get your config from an S3 bucket. We allow you to use telemetry schemas that relate to what Trask was just talking about with the evolution of semantic conventions. And we also offer transformations that help you use Prometheus with the Delta to cumulative processor. We've also been working on the roadmap we set for Collector 1.0. We are trying to get a more minimal distribution to be marked as 1.0, and for that, we are starting with the foundation of the libraries that make up the collector, and we marked 16 of them as 1.0 in the last year. And finally, we've been trying to grow the community within the collector SIG with 4 new triggers, 8 new approvers, and 3 new maintainers across all the collector repositories. Shout out to all of these people. Thank you for the work you do. We're going to continue working on investing on these components. You've seen before the profiling work we're also doing in the collector. But when it comes to the Collector 1.0 project, I wanted to highlight we feel like we're now ready to start marking our first pipeline components as 1.x, starting with the OTLP receiver. So that's what we're going to work on next there. And then we are finishing some revamp of batching, moving it to the exporter to address some shortcomings of the batch processor, and of the internal telemetry so that you can observe the internals of the pipelines that you define in the collector. So yep, you can join us to help start marking components as 1.x. So now I'm going to talk about feedback. We are working as part of the end user SIG to empower maintainers to be able to create surveys and get insights about what our end users need. We ran 6 surveys last year with more than 500 responses in total. I'll talk about a couple of them in the next slides. And we also try to recognize our contributors. Last year in Salt Lake City, we did our first ever OpenTelemetry Community Awards, and we will continue with this effort, recognizing the impact of contributors in our community in the next KubeCon+. One of the surveys we've run is the Developer Experience Survey, which got over 200 responses from people using OpenTelemetry with more than 15 programming languages. And this helped us identify gaps in some aspects of our documentation, examples, debugging experience that the developer experience SIG is going to help address across all of OpenTelemetry. And on the other hand, we've also done a survey for contributors, including maintainers. We got responses from people that have contributed to every single SIG that we have on OpenTelemetry, and about 40% of all maintainers. And I mean, overall, we still need to analyze the data from these 2 surveys. We will publish the results on the blog post. But the overall feeling is that contributors can solve problems and maintainers overall have autonomy for their day-to-day decisions. But we want to look into improving the transparency and readability of the decision-making within the project, and also reducing the dependency on synchronous meetings. This is pretty important given the evolution that we've seen of contribution across regions. As you can see, EMEA contributions have grown a lot over the years. And we've also seen a slight uptick on contributions from people in Asia Pacific, and we want everybody to be able to participate. So we want to look into more async ways of working. And with that, I'll pass it back to Alolita for closing.
All right. Thank you, Pablo. All right, so I think we have about 5 minutes left, so I won't take too much of your time. And again, use the 5 minutes to ask questions, get organized. And I also would like to just say that we will all be at the OpenTelemetry Observatory in the expo hall. So please come and meet us there if you don't get a chance to ask your question now. I'd also like to kind of call out, we are actually very excited to be doing our OpenTelemetry Contrib Fest later today. So in case you're working on any areas, whether that's the collector or the Go SDK, Java, JavaScript, and other libraries, do come and join in. Our maintainers are from the project will be there. So again, they can mentor, they can answer questions, they can actually show you and go into the code. So please join in. It's from 4:15 to 5:30 later today. And it's, again, on the same level in Suite 1. So please don't forget to join in. And with that, I will actually open it up for questions. We have a few minutes. Please come to the mic. Ask away. I'd also like to ask our maintainers to come up to the stage if any of you are here. Jurasi, Tyler, I saw some more folks from the TC. Please come on up. Armin. Jacob, again, come on up. Okay, and again, if you have any specific questions, please come up to the mic. Might be easier. First question.
Hey guys, my question's for Pablo. Actually, one of the items you had there on the collector slide regarding exporter queuing and things like that. You're revamping it. Can you give a bit more detail about that? Because that's something I've tweaked, configured quite a bit. So I'd be interested to hear more.
Sure. So, the gist of it is that we are moving the batching on your pipelines from a dedicated processor on the batching processor to each of the exporters. That has some advantages for propagating information back in the pipeline, things like errors, which are a bit more challenging with a component like the batching processor, which is async. And it also gives you a bit more flexibility to do batching in a more sophisticated way if you're exporting in a format that is not OTLP, because you could, say, batch for a particular megabyte size that you want to target. The work is still ongoing. There are some companies that are experimenting with this on production, so we still need to polish the details, but it seems like a promising direction, and we're going to keep on working on it.
Awesome, sounds great, thanks.
Hello, I have a question about the Hotel Arrow kind of side project. I'm wondering if this is going to converge towards the standard way of doing hotel data transfer, or is this more of an optimization for a special case?
There's a project proposal that just went up in community today, so I would recommend you go read that. I think it's something that we're going to look really hard at towards an evolution, but we also don't want to cause any kind of split or fork in how people use Hotel. So, TBD, but I would go look at that project proposal.
Thanks.
One more?
Yeah, hi, thank you for the talk. My question is, we in the organization used the K&S attributes processor and tail sampling together, and in the first time it works, but when we realized that the throughput of spans through the collector was much, much better when we did not use both of these things. We still currently use the attributes processor because it's very valuable, but we get rid of tail sampling and we store everything. I think it might be useful to recheck that because we still are in that stage since, I think, 1.5 years. Do you think that there are lots of improvements in terms of performance in those areas?
So I can answer that. So if you have a file, an issue, or some other sort of extra information, please send it to me.
Yeah, okay.
This is...
I'm sorry. You're doing them in the same collector? Or are you doing two separate collectors?
You have a cascade of 2 stages of collectors for the load balancing stuff and then the tail sampling decision afterwards.
Yeah, and you had a problem with performance with that, or when you were combining them into one?
I think in the end it was simply that we saw, well, tail sampling might be a useful thing in the long run, but currently we can store everything, so we got rid of that, and we realized that there's a much more higher throughput when we do like load testing of the collector with doing lots of things on the systems.
Okay. So I'm not able to give you a specific answer about your problem, but I will say as part of the marking components as 1.0 initiative, we are going to be looking harder into performance, throughput, reliability of the components, and establishing requirements so that this kind of thing is at least measured and you have an idea of what load each component would support. And
okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
So we are looking to performance for tail sampling. I think James made it 2 questions before, so he made some improvements to the tail sampling processor there. We are working on a few things for tail sampling, like caching decisions and working on improvements on load balancing exporter as well. So we are aware of performance issues, but the thing is, the load balancing exporter is doing something, and the tail sampling processor is doing something. So it is costing cycles, right? So if you can ingest all of that data, do it. It's way better than.
I was gonna say, like, it's really cheap to. It's really cheap to put that stuff in like S3, right? Like if you really have performance considerations, then you should be pushing that off until much later in your decision pipeline and just like store everything. Yeah, like post process it, right? Please don't sample. I'm sorry, like I know it's common wisdom, and I know that you're going to be like, vendor, but no, like seriously, like your devs will love you if you just say like, oh, what if we actually just don't sample, and then we don't have to worry about all of this stuff.
Shall we pay that?
Yeah. Don't sample and tell them Austin sent you. This is not an official OpenTelemetry statement. This is Austin Parker telling you don't sample. It will work out better for you in the long run.
All right, thank you, everyone. And you know where to find us after this, so come by and say hello at the OpenTelemetry Observatory.